Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles, and thank you for joining us from whatever altitude you are joining us from. We look forward to you joining us at Mile High altitude in June, and make sure you hit subscribe, whether you're watching or listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher or any of the other channels such as YouTube, so you never miss any tick, especially Mile High tick, and you certainly want to be with us all live at the Mile High community in June of 2022. I am super thrilled to introduce on this particular episode our guest. He was referred to me or introduced to me by a person I have a lot of admiration for, Nick Spano, who's an incredible chiropractor, and he connected with us on the Art of Chiropractic Summit last year, and then we had him present a breakout session at Mile High last year, which people just loved, and he's going to be a main stage speaker at Mile High in 2022 at our 10th anniversary. He has 12 years of chiropractic experience, 7 years of being voted the best chiropractor, thousands of community members served, because he's taken his passion in his practice and founded a franchise, ChiroWay, and their mission is impacting people with pure, unadulterated chiropractic. And he also helps with AMP, which is a tonal chiropractic analysis that determines spinal level and location of subluxation, that is based on teachings of Reggie Gold and Joe Strauss. And Trent and I have very, very similar pedigree in terms of our who influence us in chiropractic, such as Joe D'Onofrio. These are the people that I learned from throughout chiropractic school and influenced me. So it's probably part of why we get along, why he loves Mile High. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Trent Scheidecker.
Wow, I am so excited to be here, and I can't give you enough gratitude and appreciation for bringing our culture, my culture of chiropractic, TIC, like you mentioned when we opened up, into your culture, because that's really a missing link in our profession, is forming all of these alliances and creating a stronger bond so that all of us can be better chiropractors. And I'll be on the main stage, like Danny said, talking really about that journey that I've embarked upon and I help my colleagues embark upon in the franchise that we operate in. And I think the history that we shared, Danny, is worth noting here. I was just out in New Jersey with the Garden State Chiropractic Society. What a group of chiropractors, and history that comes from that little region that Reggie Gold and Joe Strauss give Joe and his family lots of love and prayers right now. And Nick Spano, all of those chiropractors, Joe D'Onofrio, those guys were the silent leaders of our profession for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't heard of those guys, or you haven't heard of the Garden State Chiropractic Society, you got to look into them, because it's a phenomenal history of chiropractic. And that's, Simon Senzen does a really good job of displaying the history of chiropractic. And mm-hmm. he notes heavily in his documents where that line of heritage, that pedigree that you and I share, come from. And I'm a big fan of the history. So I feel like a long lost brother with you, Danny. I think that there's going to be lots of hugs and maybe a few tears even coming up here soon. So yeah, let's get the party started. Where do you want to go?
I tell you, the thing is that also is I'm glad you're aware of, and I'm aware of, and sadly, not a lot of people are aware of, not as many need to be, and maybe this will be some of what we talk about too, is that why not enough people learn analysis of chiropractic. Not enough learn philosophy, not enough learn subluxation or technique, but really not enough learn analysis. And you and I do different types of analysis, but what the work you do is so vital, and people do all kinds of things without any analysis, and you no outcomes. And so you've got to have philosophy, science, art all come together in a coherent, congruent fashion. So first of all, you went for you. How did you end up in a more philosophical focused world of chiropractic compared to like where did you find really true chiropractic principles?
That's a great question. And I am going to try to keep it short and sweet because I could go into a long 30-minute discussion on my journey into mentorship, but it really boils around that word. And that's another shared common passion you and I have on is coaching and mentoring this next wave of students that are coming into our profession. You see, Reggie Gold is where it started, but it didn't stop there. I just kept digging and digging for more. Chiropractors, like I mentioned, Joe D'Onofrio really laid the foundation for how I deliver a day one orientation is what we call it. I had a client come in yesterday. We had 5 clients come in yesterday. I call them clients. I don't call them patients. That was taught to me by Reggie Gold and Joe Strauss. And she never had chiropractic care before. And I said, well, what brings you in? And she's like, I've got some discomfort, got some, typical issues that bring a new person into our practice. And I said, well, what do you know about chiropractic? And she smiled and she said, I'm a skeptic. I've stayed away from you because I heard once you start, you got to keep going. And I heard that, people see chiropractors all for the business model. And so it opened up a perfect opportunity for me to turn the myth into more truth, and truth is wisdom, and wisdom and truth just can't be denied if you lay it in a logical format. And so Joe D'Onofrio taught me how to speak and teach and educate on that first visit. I know you do a lot of education as well, Danny. And so having people that have taught me to communicate and have it formulated to match the principles of our profession, you can't be a chiropractor and do something that's not chiropractic and then tell people that they need to be under chiropractic care, and it just doesn't correlate. Like there's got to be principles of deduction. Joe Strauss taught me a lot of that. So these mentors really created a business model for me to create when I graduated school. And this business model is really based around the concept that we want to see people for a lifetime of regular chiropractic adjustments, because as long as people have spines, as long as they have stress in their life, and as long as we have these 2 hands, we have the gift and the talent and the analysis, like Danny said, to help people live at a higher quality of life. And that's a whole conversation in and of itself, where a lot of students come out of school or even chiropractors, you get stuck in that level of average, or you get stuck in that level of good, and you want to get to great, you want to get to exceptional for results or for practice performance, whatever it is, but you're not improving. And so for the past 10, 12 years, I constantly monitored how I was analyzing, whether or not it was producing an effective adjustment. And when Nick Spano asked me to take the torch of advanced muscle palpation, we call it AMP, not AMP, because we don't want to mix that up with amped. AMP, we are trying to revive this age-old analysis that's been around for a long time and teach more students, more chiropractors to revitalize or, just take your game to another level, because it works when you go down that journey.
Well, and it's also focusing on delivering the real thing, right? And it's actually something that at this point is a phenomenal market advantage, because there's so little true chiropractic that when people are receiving someone and even hearing someone describe the real gift of chiropractic, it's that you have a great market advantage, because they're missing that elsewhere in the marketplace in terms of chiropractor focusing on other things. So I'm glad you're leading that. So now in terms of the advanced muscle palpation, help people understand that more, because many people do all kinds of, they might be good at thrusting and might be good at hearing, making a noise, right? And look really good on Instagram, but are they really correcting a subluxation? So, yeah.
Again, I'll try not to take this into a 30-minute conversation. I try to keep it simple when I'm communicating it with my clients, and I'll do the same here. Our objective as a chiropractor is to locate subluxation, and at the core of subluxation is a neurological interference. You know, like you said, we have different forms of analysis, but I guarantee if I sat in one of your seminars or I dove deeper into network, I guarantee network has a very neurological focus and is honing in on neurology. And that's what you and I share. And that's what advanced muscle palpation is. I've had chiropractors say, well, why is it called muscle palpation when if you're analyzing the neurology? And we as chiropractors forget that muscles are nerves, and the muscles are just an extension of nerves. We teach our clients that, we teach our public that everything in our body is neurology. And I say that the connective tissue is just an extension of the neurology. You got muscle spindles, you got proprioceptors. Is it Heidi Havoc does phenomenal research out of Australia that talks all about the proprioceptors and how that is correlated to joint function, dysfunction, and subluxation. And that's what muscle palpation is. When I was out in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago, I said, I had 50 chiropractors in the room and another 50 online. I said, raise your hand if you here practice advanced muscle palpation. And like no one rose their hand. I was like, shit, I thought these guys all were, in line with what I'm talking about. And then someone spoke up and they go, we don't call it advanced muscle palpation. We call it muscle palpation. Advanced muscle palpation is what you're going to help us understand. It's going to be a greater understanding of the muscle stabilizers and sensory nerve endings. And so advanced muscle palpation is really muscle palpation, and muscle palpation is really proprioceptive, stretch, GABA reflex, all of these neural receptors telling you where there's interference on that in that vertebral spinal column. And if you can hone in the difference between a posterior major, rectus capitis posterior major, that is, and a levator scapula, first branch and second branch, or a multifidi, now you've got more information on, hey, there's neurological stress occurring right at this T9 or right at this C2. It's not C1. Get off the one, it's C2. And so you can have a greater indicator of where to facilitate the adjustment. And that's a new add-on that I'm trying to add to this analysis, is not make it a, hey, this is exactly how you have to adjust, but also using the analysis to facilitate the adjustment. And I believe that's a shared common characteristic of network, where you can use an analysis to determine where to adjust, but then you're in that same zone, that same approach to facilitate the adjustment. And the adjustment within advanced muscle palpation is very tonal, very, very tonal. People walk out of our practice almost, I don't want to like dog on network, but when you see someone get in network adjustments, they're very vocal, and they have the person has no problem explaining through their vocal cords that was a phenomenal adjustment. And that's what we see very often in our practice, where people are, swearing, they're happy, they're giggling, they're laughing, they're like, wow, that really hit me at a different core. So it's not about movement. It's not about manipulation. It's not about thrusting. It is about facilitating, and facilitation requires analysis so that you can work in line with the body's wisdom or innate intelligence or inner power that we all focus in on as chiropractors.
And really about that there's a change in the nerve system. There can be a change in the joint, but that's different than a change in the nerve system. They might cross, but they don't always cross. So that's a very important refinement.
Yeah, I'll add to that real quick here. When the neurological connection with muscle palpation is, it's hitting their core, it's hitting their cerebellum. So this relationship that we focus on, finding the subluxation, when we can really be specific with the adjustment, it resets their cerebellum. That spinal cord tract goes right up there and comes right back down in order for that adjustment to be facilitated. So without a doubt, there's a huge central neurological system connection with specific vitalistic chiropractic adjustments.
Right, exactly. So now, tell me about what you see. You work with lots of chiropractors, and also my impression that in your world and with the people that you train, both in your programs as well as in your offices, have a high focus on being clinically excellent of what they do. Tell me about what that means to you. What clinical excellence means.
It's about taking that journey, Danny. When I was in school trying to decide what was to come after at that graduation point, I knew based off of my previous experiences of challenges, just life in general, that if I don't tackle and I don't attack that biggest challenge, life is going to tackle me. And I'm a big proponent, and this is what I want to talk about when we get together here in a couple of weeks. I want to talk about the mental aspect that people have in our profession of whether or not they're really going and attacking those challenges that require you to become better. One of my greatest mentors is not a chiropractor. He's no longer alive. His name is Jim Rohn. If you haven't heard of Jim influenced Tony Robbins. He influenced this whole culture of leadership development. And at the very core of becoming clinically excellent is this idea that if you want your environment to change, you need to be the change. And we, as a committed group of chiropractors that are on the microphone or on the main stage or on the podcast, you name it, we have a responsibility to hold this younger generation, or even maybe some of our current generation that's gotten into this phase of status quo. Get away from the status quo. Don't put the key in the door and open it up and then just do the same thing to the same person week after week after week. You should be constantly trying to problem solve or analyze how this person is different today than they were last week. And so clinical excellence is really about you becoming excellent at what you're doing. And in order for that to happen, you need mentors, you need accountability partners, you need coaches, you need management companies. They're all over. If you want to be a chiropractor by yourself there and have your practice name Danny's Chiropractic or Trent's Chiropractic, whatever it is, that's fine. But you need to surround yourself with people that can help you raise your level. Because if I'm telling you, my greatest accountability partner is my wife. She literally will call me out in all aspects of life if I'm not holding myself to the standard that provides for my family, provides for my team at work, provides for my community. And I take that role and I do the same for those around me that have that shared mission, that shared concept that we have within our either our franchise or through advanced muscle palpation. The opportunity to be held accountable is around. It's just whether or not you're going to take that next step. And for most of us, I think we're afraid to just pay some money, or we're afraid to change. We're afraid to do something that's different than what we've been doing. And frankly, Danny, I think that's bullshit. I think we should all be held accountable to a higher standard, because if we aren't changing, then our community's not changing. And if our community's not changing, we're going to be stuck in the same stinking bubble of where we currently are as a profession. And when my son wants to be a chiropractor, hopefully someday, or my daughter, I don't want them having the same dilemmas that we're going through. Should be better.
Well, and you mentioned another word that's super important for me, which is accountability. I find that I use a lot of instrumentation in X-ray. I palpate as well, but and I used to not use those things. I feel outcomes are super important, and tend to notice that people don't value clinical excellence. They don't value focus on philosophy, and it's indoctrinated in school inappropriately to not necessarily value those things. And then they also have accountability issues. They may not be accountable to an outcome other than particularly their financial gain, or they don't know how to measure outcome. Is the person actually improving in some way that's there? So what do you see? You've worked lots of chiropractors, associates, people that you train in programs. what are some of the qualities you see in outstanding chiropractors that like, this person's going to be successful because these are some of the qualities you see in them?
That's a phenomenal question. Really good question. I didn't know where this conversation was going to go today. And I was like, maybe I should like prep for it. And finally I gave up and I'm like, no, I'm just going to show up and make the most out of it. That question right there, Danny, is personal quality of myself. When I got into practice, I was very determined and I just went after it. And if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching it right now, you can raise your hand if you're that type of chiropractor, because there's a lot of that in our profession where we don't want to go down that medical paradigm route. We are doing something different than what our parents told us to do. We're doing something different than what our girlfriends, spouses, or wives think we should be doing. That's a positive trait. Hold on to that trait. But if you go at life in that type A 100 miles an hour and you don't surround yourself with someone that can give you information and you listen to that information, you, my friend, may be driving east when you need to be driving west. And that's an old Tony Robbins quote where he says, hey, damn it, if you want to see the sunrise, you got to drive east. You can't drive west to see the sunrise. And so I think the biggest characteristic I've seen of myself over the last 5 years that have created a phenomenal change, not only in my practice, but in our franchise as well, where we're actually growing now, is I'm listening to people. I've got franchise mentors that are teaching me how to be a better franchisor. I've got chiropractic mentors that I listen to on, hey, maybe their analysis has correlation to what we're doing, rather than saying, hey, they take x-rays, don't listen, don't go down that route because that's different. Different's good. Different has something to share information with you on. And so listen, if you're listening to this right now, listen, but then you can't just sit there and listen. You have to apply and take action. So those two would be my two biggest characteristics. If I showed you my journal, my planner, every day I've got like 10 to 12 high action priorities that I need to take action on. And so I don't think about, hey, today would be a really good day to do this and not do it. You need to do this shit and you need to get up early. You stop sleeping in, get up early and get to work. That's, I guess, listen and take action would be my two biggest qualities.
You sound a lot like me, which must be why we get along so well. So, I sense that we have another commonality, which is that there's I get a lot of frustration when I see in the chiropractic, when I look at the landscape of what's gone on in the chiropractic profession and where chiropractic is and where we know it has its potential to reach, right? So I don't think you put a lot of time into teaching and training and expanding now ChiroWay into multiple locations simply because you need a new hobby or a particular or a particular financial motivation, but rather that there's a mission, right? And you see where chiropractic is and where it would like to be. Where you'd like to see it. So let's talk about those two things, if it's okay with you. What do you see in the chiropractic profession as in the landscape that might be less than ideal? Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm going to hone it in. That's another phenomenal question that I am passionate about. We don't need to go down a political route. We are going to go down a constitutional route that we all have as not Americans, but as people in general, and that's freedom. Freedom to me is a really important word in our profession because we talk about being free from subluxation. Subluxation constricts people and it makes them bondage to that current quality of life. And our current profession isn't as free as it could be if we took ownership of that profession to a degree that is required for freedom to occur. And I am not a political man at heart. I'll leave that to the blessed hearts out there. So if you are in that position, you're listening to this and you're working at the universities in our profession, I applaud you. I donate to you guys because I think that your mission correlates with my professional practice mission of creating more freedom. If you are serving within a state or national organization that is there to help and protect our profession at all these different areas, I applaud you. I think our current status of the profession, I don't want to go down that road because I really try to stay optimistic in my eyesight, and I don't want to become too pessimistic. But our glass is currently half empty and half full as a profession, and we need to focus on which area that we're going to focus on. Is it half full or is it half empty? Well, I'm going to focus on the half full. And so my goal is to create more freedom for students so they don't feel like they need to take an associate job because they don't have the right systems or the right branding or the right training. I'm going to focus on helping chiropractors in practice or students that are in school. If you're a student right now, you need to check out all these different techniques, because the techniques will give you freedom, and that freedom will come in your clinical thought process, your clinical excellency. And so you've got to surround yourself with a practice model, a technique, a philosophy that makes you free. I love what Joe Strauss did in the Blue Books for me. It made me free from the bondage of trying to prove chiropractic on a symptomatic level. If you're in practice right now and you're trying to tell someone that your clinical results or outcomes are based off of how they feel, or whether or not they have back pain, headaches, the common musculoskeletal conditions that do often change under chiropractic care. I'm not discrediting all the current research that's in the profession. I'm actually saying, hey, maybe there needs to be new research in the form of asymptomatic changes. What's the outcomes? What's the quality of life outcomes that we could, as a profession, promote? Two of my new clients yesterday, Danny, were 7 days old. They were twins. And the mom has been under care with me for 6, 7, 8 years, coming in every week and brings her twins in and I said, well, is there anything that you need to talk to me about? Is there any current deviation of their current quality of life? She goes, no deviation. They're well. Right. I want them to be better. I want them to experience what I experienced when I received care from you. That to me is goosebumps, and that's freedom for this next generation that have the opportunity to see. Raise your hand in here if you're seeing younger generation of chiropractic clients, patients, whatever you call them, practice members. That's freedom. That's freedom, because that's going to create that phenomenon that BJ Palmer talked about, the big idea and the thought process that we can make a big impact on the next quality of life that's out there if we become more free ourselves. And you need to take responsibility in order to be free. You can't put you can't put your expectations on someone else's plate and expect someone else to change your current situation. Take responsibility, but listen and take action.
Right. And so that's all also super important. Now, that half full thing, I put most of my energy where what I would like to see. And actually, before I ask you this question, your book, can you tell people how they can plug into your book? Because that's phenomenal. I'd like more people to get their hands on it. And then let me ask you that question.
This book was written with years of challenges that I poured my heart and soul into on the keyboard. I was in your shoes, and I'm saying you as in if you're a student or you're a chiropractor in practice right now, if you're listening to this and there's an ounce of inspiration where you're like, hey, maybe I should try a little bit harder. I am very passionate about educating my practice members, my clients, to understand and grasp the potential that chiropractic adjustments are more than what they maybe assume. Now, I don't want them to know as much as us, because otherwise, I forget who said it, but someone said if they knew as much as you did, they would become a chiropractor. And that's why I'm here, because I kept diving deeper into the philosophy. But this book called The Adjustment Advantage, You can go to my website, trentscheidecker.com, and order it specifically for me. You can go on Amazon and order it from my publishing company.
The Adjustment Advantage.
The Adjustment Advantage. And I am a big fan of making something sound as phenomenal or as great as what lies within it. And there is an advantage to our population of chiropractic consumers than the people that aren't under chiropractic care. There's just an advantage at hand, an advantage, not that they're necessarily better, but that they're adapting to a higher state, to the current demands that we all are under right now. We are at an all-time high of stress, probably more emotional and chemical or electrical chemical than physical, but regardless, we are under a all-time stress. And so we as a profession need to teach our consumers that, hey, when you're coming in here, you're not coming in with something and we're removing it. You're actually coming in and you're walking out with more. And that's an advantage right there. That's no different than going to the weight room 3 times a week and becoming stronger physically. People have an advantage when they're under chiropractic care. So this book has lots of simple but yet profound analogies on how this whole philosophy, science, and art. I kept it to 3 main points within it, and it's designed for the consumer. I mean, as a chiropractor, if you read this, it's going to take you maybe 2 or 3 days to read. It's real short and sweet. But if you have this book and you give it to your client, or you sell it to your client, or you borrow it to your client, like having a lend-in library, it's going to give them more, not faith, but reassurance that they should have their family under care. They should be talking to their neighbors. They should be trying to get their local community officials or officers under care. That's the kind of Reggie Gold inspiration that I take to practice. I don't want it just to be about that one person. I want it to be about a community.
Yeah, and so that's really important because people have to expand their vision. If we're going to bring chiropractor, and this is why I asked you the question first, from where it is to where it has the promise of being, it's been the promise since its inception, then that we have to expand our visions. We have to think beyond our 4 walls. We got to think beyond us, and we got to think beyond our 4 walls of our office. So now, if you were to paint a picture of what you would love to see the chiropractic profession look like, and what practice was look like after people graduated, what would you love to see?
I would love to see more certainty in being. We are different. We are a different crowd. We're a different tribe compared to most of those healthcare providers out there. Being different is all right. And actually, part of my presentation, not to go too far into this, is that on the opposite side of being different is this term called exceptional. Exceptional is really at the core root of the definition of exceptional is being different. And so if you feel like no one gets you, but yet you're communicating the same message that they're getting on the TV and the radio and Facebook and all of that messaging that's just pounding them, and you're listening to this and you feel different, but you're speaking the same language to them, no bueno is what I would say. You need, sorry, my kids are learning Spanish right now, getting ready to help Liam in his global mission. You see, if maybe someday they will work for Liam. If you feel that no one understands you, but yet you're trying to correlate your values with someone else that is asking for direction, I challenge you to become more confident and certain in our uniqueness as a profession. We are unique. I've been speaking innate intelligence and subluxation for 12 years in practice. And people were like, I've never heard of that. Now I teach the little kids when they come in, I say, hey, can you say the word subluxation? And the kids are learning this word. That is where we need to grow as a profession, And that's my mission, I guess, at ChiroWay is it's all right to be different. It's all right to be different. We don't have, when you walk into our practice, we don't wear lab coats. We don't wear, that medical paradigm, not because I'm against medicine. I think medicine does phenomenal job. Look what they did for you, Danny. Like medicine's there for a purpose,
Right.
but as a chiropractor, we need to have chiropractic centers. We need to have practices that are honed on lifting people up, and it should be a community experience where they come in and they see someone that they know. I get that every day in my practice. They come in, we don't have walls in our offices because we want people to feel connected. That's kind of the purpose of chiropractic, is to reconnect them to that higher purpose. And so it'd be great to see that in the profession stand more on our uniqueness. I think it was hot in the 60s when when Sherman opened up, and when Reggie and all of those phenomenal chiropractors really took BJ's philosophy and they promoted it. And then from the 70s or 80s, and once we got into the insurance paradigm realm, we changed our terminology. We started communicating on a term of uniqueness. Now, granted, we still have to have some dichotomies in practice. So you need to walk that fine line of standards of care, but you need to also be very strong in our uniqueness. And that's, hopefully I didn't give away my whole presentation, but that's a taste of what I see in the profession is go walk around town with your fake spine and have a conversation with someone. I had a student out of my office yesterday, and he's got a whole anatomical spine sitting in his whole skeleton sitting in his front seat. And so when he pulls up somewhere, people are like, what is that guy? And what does he do? They're going to ask him. He's different. It's all right to be different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I'm sure you've had these conversations, and I've had these conversations many times over the years. I even had one recently. That's why it's coming up for me, where someone says, "Oh, we saw a chiropractor and they did the wrong diagnosis, or they missed something," and that's basically us not standing on our uniqueness. And if the person was standing on our uniqueness, they know that our role is not to diagnose any condition. Other than optimizing, than subluxation and optimizing the spine and nerve system, so you can facilitate the body better being able to heal at its best. And when those kinds of things, when we don't stand our uniqueness, we end up where we are as a profession, because we are a mongrel, and we are going in the direction of how do we become part of the system rather than stand separate and distinct and unique and bang on a drum loud how we're different from the rest of the healing arts in the world, and have our own place in that. So and this is what Mile High stands for, and this is why I appreciate you and your message, and the people that have their various ways of addressing that, but are facing that same direction. We need to collaborate together if we're going to move the profession and the world towards that direction. So yeah, absolutely.
I stand united. To unite a bunch of unique individual souls in this profession. And sometimes it's not about doing what the other person's doing, but it's seeing the values that other person has, and that shared value concept that we as a profession can help a lot of different people if it's got a shared objective. That's a Joe Strauss a phenomenon that really blew my practice up. Is it? And you got to know your objective, your professional objective.
Yeah.
So.
And you got to know your objective, and you've also got to know your outcomes that you're measuring, because sometimes people think they know their objective is subluxation, and then they're measuring it with outcomes like orthoneurotests, which are not matched up with that objective, right? And then that's a problem, and for many levels.
Yep. Yes, sir. And if you want better outcomes, clarify that objective, and then clarify that objective in your terms and conditions, in your informed consent. We've got Matt McCoy from Chiro Futures coming to the event. Listen to these people that can protect you in practice, so that you can have a solid foundation of not only a practice, but a business model, and a why for going in and actually having fun. We should all be energetic to going into practice and pounding out. Like my associate or my lead chiropractor said yesterday, he goes, holy shit, that was the fastest 6 hours that I've ever worked here. And the reason it was the fastest 6 hours is because we had 5 new clients and we saw over 100 people in those 6 hours, in the 5 hours that we were actually open. We had a new client before we opened. So being energetic and being unique in your focus, your objective, and having a outcome that you can logically educate your community on, people will come. They'll pay you cash for it too. And cash is king, and cash is responsibility. That person's being responsible for a higher quality of life.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there any last message that you want to end with people, share with people before we see you live at Mile High? Is there any last message you want to share relative to while we're on the podcast?
Yeah, just book your tickets. If you haven't, like, if you're thinking about Mile High, or you've been in years past and this year is a financial struggle, that would be my last message. If you don't think you have enough money to go to Mile High, if you're a student and you're living on a budget, go do what my intern does. Go get a freaking job at Uber and drive people around, or Uber Eats, or save up the next 4 weeks that what it's going to cost you, because Jim Rohn has a famous quote that I live by. He said, for every dollar you invest into yourself, there's a 3,333% return on that investment. Now, I don't know where he got that number from, but I guarantee, as the leadership icon that he had a pretty good firm grasp that when he was selling his seminars for people to come into, that he had to teach them that you have to pay me, and you have to understand that there's this value exchange, and we do this in practice, that is going to create a greater return of accountability, responsibility, and all that. So if you haven't booked your tickets to come see us, hang out, learn, network, have fun, you're missing out. So make it happen now, and then bring someone with you. I've got, I think, like 12 people that I plan on like correlating and getting out there. And so we should all be bringing at least 5 to 10 people. And let's make this, the 10th anniversary, the biggest year out there, and take a load off of Danny's plate, because he works really hard at getting this whole thing up and running. And really, it all boils down to, if the profits come in, he'll do it again next year for us. So you got to buy the tickets and you got to be there.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that. And really, we give so much back to the profession out of it. It's really so that in the center of the country, we have a hub of chiropractic enthusiasm based on our foundational values and principles, which makes it stand out from lots of other events that may be wonderful, but may not have that focus. And we need that for students. We need that for new grads. We need that for the whole profession. So more of us are turning towards that direction of our foundational principles rather than turning away from them. How do people, I will say this, I'd like people to plug into your programs. How could they plug into AMP more?
Yeah, so AMP, Advanced Muscle Palpation, you can Google that and check out our website. We got phenomenal. We've got over 10 hours of events that we've just recently recorded that are on the back end of the website. So you can reach out to me and ask more information on that, become a supporting member of the technique and the research and the teaching that we've got going on. On top of Advanced Muscle Palpation, if you Google ChiroWay, you're going to see information on our offices that we have currently in the Midwest, but we're expanding into new states as we speak. And that has a link on there called ChiroWay Franchise. ChiroWay Franchise is that professional mission that I have, which is given more students, or if you're an associate and you want to branch off and do your own thing, we've got all the marketing, all the branding, all the training that you could ask for having a cash practice focused on that objective of promoting freedom of subluxation. So that, and then TrentScheidecker.com, if you want to check out the book. I support, I respect anyone that supports another chiropractor. I buy chiropractic books all the time, because that really does continue the professional objective of greater understanding and greater education.
And it's vital. So thank you so much for giving so much attention to help students, doctors, and the profession as a whole in so many ways. I've got to tell you, anytime you see Trent on the platform to present, you'll be well advised to spend time with Trent. You will learn stuff from him every single time. I know this is going to be one of people's favorite podcast episodes. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Trent, and we look forward to seeing you on the main stage of Mile High, and we look forward to seeing all of you on Higher Ground. Mile High comes early this year. It's June 2nd to 5th. RiseUpToMileHigh.com is where you can get the 411. And we look forward to seeing everybody there, and never miss any Mile High Tech. New episodes every Thursday night.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for all you do.